Hello everyone, my name is Laronda Fitz, and the topic of the day is why communication matters in counseling. We will begin by understanding that communication begins at birth, and this is done through the crying, the laughing, or the smiling. Interpersonal communication involves a lot of practice, planning, and the purpose. So, in counseling, it is important to understand that communication is good in getting strong relationships and a good rapport with the client. As a counselor, it is important to understand when to speak and how to speak, when to listen and how to listen. This case will help the client to feel safe and be free to open up. Interpersonal communication doesn't just involve the talking. It helps create strong families and good relationships with different people. So, in this study, we talk many different things related to communication, interpersonal communication, and how it fits in counseling. According to Dr. Carbonell, in his DISC personality profile circle, there were 4 quadrants that were discovered. The first is active and task-oriented quadrant. The second is active and people-oriented quadrant. And the third is passive and people-oriented. And the fourth is passive and task-oriented. According to this cycle, I appear to be to have a dominant personality with some compliance traits. This means I am direct and focused on tasks. I work hard to meet goals and to meet my goals and duties, and I complete my duties on time. I try to build long-lasting relationships by focusing on values like gratitude. However, still my strong focus on tasks might sometimes make me forget to connect people with people, informally. This is some negative trait. So let me give you a brief description of my background. I grew up in a family of about 5 people as the firstborn. Being the firstborn, I always have owned my responsibilities, and with this made me to have some leadership traits. With my 2 brothers always fighting to gain favor from my parents, I was always seen as someone to have the voice of the reason. And this became important to me because I developed some good leadership traits. The positive impact of my background on my communication patterns were: 1, I had much better leadership roles. I have developed a balanced communication, and according to Peterson 2022, he described a balanced communication as one where an individual learns to talk for a while and then listen for people until they stop talking and start talking after the other person has finished talking. However, this background also gave me some negative impacts on my communication patterns. For instance, as a firstborn, experiencing the leading role and wanting to lead others, I tended to forget myself. There were moments when I felt that I was becoming an emotional doormat, and every person in my circle was coming to me with their problems because I was known to be the listener, forgetting that I also need help. So these are some of the negative impacts that I developed, that I got, that have developed my pattern of communication. So what are some of communication barriers? The communication barriers I experience are lack of communication barriers experienced in counseling, the lack of responding to client group needs during counseling, reacting instead of responding and understanding, 3, depending on technology and losing the power of the traditional means of communication. A discussion of the barriers is 1, one, like there are very many impacts, like the part of technology. People tend to focus more on technology, forgetting the basis of communication, like listening to someone rather than spending your time on phone. So that is some of the issue that affects communication, especially in counseling. So, more that was just a basis. Now, what are the goals and strategies of communication in counseling? Huh? One, as a counselor, I plan to become more empathetic in listening, especially during sessions with a risk of youths who are facing addiction in my community. This goal is important because it will help me become more understanding of the problems that these youth face, and this will help me to connect with them more because I now understand where they come from. The strategies that I will use here is developing better listening skills. This can be achieved by developing clarity in the thinking process, and this can help make more informed and constructive decisions during the process. Also, going beyond concern and showing genuine desire to connect with someone will also help me in my strategy with connecting with these youths. This involves deeply feeling their issues and helping them reflect, and even just showing the client that I understand where they come from. When how relating to openly and showing authenticity is another approach that I will use to connect with this youth. This will help me and help them develop a strong bond, which will also help me know where they are coming from. Developing willingness to go beyond understanding but expressing how one truly feels regarding what they are going through. That's what I can do to relate openly with them. Using scripture guidance to be kind and compassionate, scripture guidance like the Bible, like the book of Ephesians says, that is important for us to use in the session. How will I implement these strategies? 1. Daily reflection. 2. I will use social media to practice self-disclosure and sharing with others while reflecting on the general things. Okay, 3. In that practice, I will practice deep thinking, including meditation. I will also do daily practicing of listening intently, not just haphazardly, but listening intently and helping others to connect. Vitality of plan implementation and accountability is the major strategy, the major approach in the strategy, where I will help one be more intentional and action connected. Also to help those people have to connect with their inner selves rather than just focusing on the general approach, but connecting inner self. Developing a checklist to understand where we are from the previous part, now where we are on the current part. This will help us to understand our general outcome, the general outcome of the effort that we are putting in. So, as a conclusion of this presentation, we have my background, we have the impact of the background in my communication, we have the communication barriers that I have faced and how they have been shaping my communication pattern, and the strategies I will use as a counselor to connect with others, me developing empathetic listening skills to connect with youths facing issues in my community and the strategies to implement those approaches. Thank you very much for listening.